The day the fire captain cut the lock off our community pool, Karen was screaming about bylaws while standing knee-deep in the shallow end, and I realized something important was about to snap. Not the chain, her authority, and maybe her sense of reality. I had woken up expecting a quiet Saturday. I got a front row seat to a public meltdown instead. It started with heat, the kind that sticks to your skin before breakfast. By 9 in the morning the sun was already cooking the pavement, and the pool had been our only relief all summer. Kids waited for it all week. Parents planned around it. Elderly neighbors floated quietly every afternoon like it was physical therapy instead of recreation. That morning I walked down with a towel over my shoulder and a coffee still in my hand. From half a block away I noticed something was wrong. The usual echo of splashing and laughter was gone. No kids running. No lifeguard whistle. Just silence. When I reached the gate I saw the chain. A thick industrial chain wrapped through the pool gate, cinched tight with a heavy steel padlock. Bright yellow notice taped to the fence. Laminated. Multiple copies. Pool closed until further notice by HOA authority. I stared at it, confused. Then annoyed. Then angry. Behind me, someone cleared their throat. "You're kidding me, right?" I turned to see Mark from 3 houses down. He had his twins with him, both already in swimsuits, goggles hanging around their necks. One of them tugged his sleeve. "Dad, the pool is closed?" Mark didn't answer. He was reading the notice again like it might change. More neighbors started arriving. A woman with a stroller. 2 teenagers. Mrs. Patel with her water aerobics bag. Everyone stopped short at the gate. Everyone stared at the lock. Within 5 minutes the sidewalk looked like a protest that didn't know it was one yet. Then Karen arrived. She came fast. Purposeful. Sunglasses too big for her face. Clipboard tucked under one arm like it was a weapon. HOA badge clipped to her shirt even though she wasn't required to wear one. She stopped when she saw the crowd, then smiled like she'd been waiting for this moment. "Good morning everyone," she said, loud enough to claim the space. People turned toward her at the same time. A ripple of disbelief moved through the group. "What is this?" Mark asked, pointing at the lock. Karen adjusted her sunglasses. "The pool is closed." "We can see that," I said. She gave me a tight smile. "Because I said so is not a valid answer to you, but it is to the bylaws." A few people laughed. She didn't. "There have been violations," she continued. "Unsupervised minors. Unauthorized guests. Improper pool attire. Noise complaints. I have documentation." She tapped her clipboard. Mrs. Patel stepped forward. "I have been coming here at 4 every afternoon for 10 years. I am not loud." Karen didn't look at her. "This is not personal." It felt very personal. "You can't just lock a community pool in a heatwave," someone said. Karen tilted her head. "Watch me." That was the moment my irritation hardened into something else. I knew that tone. We all did. She wasn't enforcing rules. She was enjoying control. "Who authorized this?" I asked. "I did," she replied instantly. "No vote?" "Emergency authority," she said. "Health and safety." "Health and safety," Mark repeated, gesturing at his sweating kids. Karen didn't flinch. "They can hydrate at home." The crowd started murmuring. Phones came out. Someone started recording. Karen noticed and squared her shoulders. "I suggest you all disperse," she said. "Trespassing will result in fines." That's when Jake from the corner house laughed. Out loud. "Couldn't help it." "You fine me," he said. "For standing on a sidewalk?" Karen's smile vanished. "I can fine you for harassment." The words hung there, ridiculous and threatening at the same time. I pulled out my phone and opened the HOA document. I'd read it before. Karen assumed nobody else had. "You don't have emergency authority over amenities," I said. "That requires a board vote or a city order." Karen stepped closer to me. Close enough that I could smell her perfume. "You are not on the board," she said quietly. "But I can read," I replied. Her jaw tightened. For a split second, something flickered behind her eyes. Then she straightened and raised her voice again. This conversation is over. The pool remains closed. She turned, pulled a small sign from her bag, and zip-tied it to the fence under the notice. Another laminated warning. This one included fines. Big numbers. That's when the first kid started crying. The sound cut through everything. Hot, frustrated, helpless. Karen ignored it. I didn't. I stepped away from the gate and dialed the city number posted on the pool rules sign. Maintenance and safety. It rang longer than I expected. Karen watched me with a knowing smile. Go ahead, she said. Call whoever you want. When someone finally answered, I explained the lock, the heat, the crowd, the children, the lack of notice. I mentioned emergency authority, and asked who declared one. There was a pause. Then the woman on the line asked a question that made my stomach flip. Is the pool fire access compliant? I looked at the gate. The chain ran through the emergency swing bar. I don't think so, I said. Karen's smile faltered. Sir, the woman said, if emergency access is blocked, that is a violation. We will notify the fire department to assess. Karen stepped forward. That's not necessary. I ended the call. 10 minutes later, the fire engine pulled in with lights on but no siren. Red against the blue sky. The crowd parted like water. Karen went pale. The captain stepped out, calm and sunburned, and walked straight to the gate. He examined the chain, the lock, the bar. Who put this here? He asked. Karen opened her mouth, closed it, then spoke. I did. HOA authority. The captain nodded slowly, then reached for his bolt cutters. This blocks emergency access, he said. That's not authority. That's a hazard. The lock snapped with a sharp metallic crack. The chain fell. The gate swung open. Karen started shouting. About bylaws. About consequences. About respect. Nobody listened. The captain looked at her and said something quiet that I'll never forget. Ma'am, you don't outrank fire code. And just like that, the pool was open. Chapter 1 ended with splashing, cheering, and Karen standing alone, clipboard shaking in her hands, realizing she'd just picked a fight with the wrong kind of authority. By noon the pool looked like a block party that had escaped supervision. Kids cannonballed without fear. Parents relaxed in clusters. Someone dragged out a portable speaker and played soft music until the lifeguard gave them a look and they turned it down. The fire engine was gone, but its presence lingered like an aftertaste Karen couldn't wash away. She didn't leave. She stood under the shade of the pergola, arms crossed, sunglasses back on, clipboard pressed flat against her chest like a shield. She watched everything. Every splash. Every laugh. Every rule that wasn't being broken but wasn't being performed with enough obedience to soothe her. I noticed her pacing when I got out to grab my towel. Slow step. Sharp turns. Like she was rehearsing a speech that hadn't landed yet. Mark leaned over to me. She's not done. No, I said. She's just rebooting. Karen waited until the fire captain was well gone and the crowd had settled into normalcy. Then she walked straight to the lifeguard's stand. The lifeguard was a college kid named Ethan who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. He straightened when Karen approached, already tense. You need to enforce capacity limits, Karen said. Ethan blinked. We're under. You need to recheck, she said. And no flotation devices larger than 24 inches. Ethan hesitated. The city allows. The HOA overrides city allowances, Karen snapped. I stood up. No, it doesn't. She turned toward me slowly. The smile was gone now. This one was pure irritation. You again. I held up my hands. Just clarifying. The captain already did. She ignored me and pointed at a group of teenagers laughing near the deep end. That boy is running. Ethan glanced over. He slowed when the whistle chirped. Karen leaned in closer to Ethan. You're letting things slide. He swallowed. I'm following posted rules. She straightened and looked around deliberately, like she was counting allies. There were none. This is exactly why the pool was closed, she said loudly. Chaos. Lack of control. Control over what? Someone asked. Joy? A few people laughed. Karen snapped her head toward the voice but couldn't pinpoint it. She walked off without another word. For about 15 minutes things were peaceful. Too peaceful. I knew better than to trust it. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I ignored it. It buzzed again. Then a third time. I stepped aside to answer. "This is the HOA Compliance Office," a woman said. "We've received reports of harassment and obstruction at the community pool." I almost laughed. "From who?" I asked. "From a board member." I looked across the pool deck. Karen stood near the fence, phone to her ear, staring straight at me. "You mean the same board member who illegally chained the gate," I said. The woman paused. "Sir, this is a formal notice." I hung up. Karen lowered her phone slowly. Her face was flushed now, not from heat. From fury. She walked toward me with purpose. "You just made this worse," she said quietly. I met her halfway. "You already did." She jabbed a finger toward the pool. "This is a private amenity. Funded by city bonds," I replied. "Public safety applies." "You think you're smart," she said. "I know I can read," I said. "And call." She leaned closer. "You humiliated me." The honesty surprised me. She hadn't meant to say that out loud. I nodded. "You did that yourself." Her eyes hardened. "This isn't over." I believed her. The first sign came an hour later when a police cruiser rolled slowly past the pool entrance. Didn't stop. Just passed. Karen watched it go like it was a promise. Then the lifeguard got a call. He walked over, confused. "They're saying someone complained about overcrowding again," he said. Karen smiled without showing teeth. Ethan did another count. Still fine. The second cruiser came closer. This one stopped. An officer stepped out. Casual. Neutral. He approached the gate. "We got a call," he said. "About a disturbance." Karen moved fast. "Officer, thank goodness. This man has been harassing me all morning and encouraging rule violations." The officer looked at me. Then at the open gate. Then at the kids. "Sir," he said, "what's going on?" I explained. Brief. Clear. Chain. "Fire department. Code violation." The officer nodded. "I heard about that." Karen stiffened. The officer turned to her. "Ma'am, did you lock the emergency gate?" She hesitated. "It was temporary." "That's a yes," he said. She started talking fast. "HOA authority. Safety concerns. Documentation." The officer listened patiently. Then said, "I'm not here for HOA disputes. I'm here for safety." Karen pointed at me again. "He's inciting." "Ma'am," he interrupted, "lower your voice." The word ma'am landed like a slap. The officer turned back to me. "Pool looks fine. If there's another complaint, it should go through the city, not emergency lines." Karen opened her mouth. Closed it. The officer left. Something in her cracked. She didn't scream. She didn't rant. She smiled. That smile scared me more than the shouting. She gathered her things and walked away with deliberate calm, like someone already writing their next move. That night an email hit every inbox in the neighborhood. Emergency HOA meeting. Mandatory attendance. Pool compliance review. I read it twice. Mark texted me. "She's going nuclear." I stared at the glowing pool lights from my patio and felt it settle in my gut. This wasn't about rules anymore. This was about revenge. The emergency meeting was scheduled for 7 sharp, which in HOA language meant Karen would arrive at 6:45 and act like everyone else was late. I walked into the clubhouse already tired, the kind of tired that comes from knowing you're about to watch something unnecessary explode. Every chair was filled. That alone told me how deep this had gone. People who never showed up for anything were there. Parents still smelling like sunscreen. Retirees clutching printed emails. A few teenagers sat in the back pretending not to care while very much caring. Karen stood at the front beside a folding table like it was a podium. Clipboard in place. Laptop open. Projector humming. She didn't wait for the clock. "This meeting is now in session," she said, sharp and loud. "Thank you for attending." Nobody thanked her back. She clicked her remote and the first slide popped up. Pool Incident Review. Red letters. Dramatic font. She launched straight in. This community experienced a serious breakdown in order today. Authority was undermined. Rules were ignored. Emergency services were misused. I raised my hand. She ignored it. Karen continued, pacing now. The pool closure was a preventative measure. It was my responsibility to act swiftly. You chained an emergency gate, someone called out. She snapped her head toward the voice. That is not up for debate. It absolutely is, I said. Fire code doesn't stop being fire code because you're annoyed. A ripple of agreement moved through the room. Karen lifted a printed packet. I have reports. Multiple complaints. Noise. Disorder. Harassment. Harassment by who? Mark asked. She looked at him coldly. You know exactly what I mean. The projector changed slides. A photo appeared. Grainy. Zoomed in. It was me. Standing by the gate. Talking on my phone. She zoomed further. My face filled the screen. I felt the room shift. This individual, Karen said, pointing at the image, instigated today's chaos. I stood up. You took photos of residents without consent? She smiled thinly. Public space. That's creepy, someone muttered. Karen ignored it. He interfered with HOA operations, contacted outside agencies, and encouraged disobedience. Encouraged safety, Mrs. Patel said. Karen slammed her clipboard onto the table. Enough. The sound echoed. People flinched. This is exactly the behavior I am talking about, she said. Constant interruptions. No respect for process. Respect is earned, Jake said from the back. Karen's face flushed. She clicked again. Next slide. Proposed actions. The first bullet point hit like a punch. Temporary suspension of pool privileges pending investigation. Groans filled the room. You can't punish everyone, someone shouted. I can and I will, Karen said. Collective responsibility. That's not a thing, I said. It is when I say it is, she replied. The second bullet point appeared. Formal complaint filed against resident for harassment and obstruction. My name followed. A few heads turned toward me. Not hostile. Curious. Some sympathetic. You didn't even interview witnesses, Mark said. Karen shrugged. I witnessed enough. The third bullet point made my stomach drop. Recommendation for fines and legal review. Now the room exploded. Legal review over a pool, someone yelled. You're out of control, another voice said. Karen raised her hands. Order. No one listened. She started shouting to be heard. This community needs discipline. I was elected to enforce standards. Elected by who? A woman asked. 5 people showed up to that vote. Karen's mouth tightened. I took a breath and spoke louder than I meant to. You're not enforcing standards. You're retaliating. Silence. Karen stared at me. Say that again. You're angry you were overruled. By fire code. By police. By reality. And now you're trying to punish anyone who didn't clap for you. Her eyes narrowed. You're attacking my character. No, I said. I'm describing your behavior. She laughed. Sharp and humorless. You think you can just stand there and accuse me? I think you already did enough accusing for everyone, I said, nodding toward the screen. She clicked off the projector abruptly. The room plunged into fluorescent light. This meeting is not a debate, she said. The board will decide. Which board? Mark asked. You're the only one here. Karen froze. One of the side doors opened. 2 people walked in. Tom and Elaine. Actual board members. Late. Confused. Why is everyone yelling? Elaine asked. Karen's face shifted instantly. Relief. Then panic. Tom looked at the laptop. At the printed packets. At the room full of angry neighbors. What's going on? He asked. Karen spoke fast. Emergency measures. Pool incident. Disruptive resident. Tom frowned. Did we vote on any of this? Karen hesitated. Elaine looked at me. What happened today? I explained. Calm. Step by step. Chain. Fire department. Police. Now this. Elaine's expression darkened. You locked an emergency gate, she said to Karen. Karen crossed her arms. I had cause. Tom shook his head slowly. You don't get to decide that alone. Karen's voice rose. Someone had to act. Elaine looked around the room. This is not acting. This is escalating. Karen's control slipped. Just for a moment. They embarrassed me, she snapped. In front of everyone. The room went quiet. Elaine exchanged a look with Tom. That was all I needed to hear, Elaine said. Karen realized too late what she'd said. This meeting is adjourned, Tom announced. Effective immediately. Karen stared at him. You can't. Yes, I can, he said. We need to review your actions. She looked around the room, searching for support. She found none. As people stood and started leaving, Karen stayed frozen at the front, clipboard limp in her hands. When I passed her, she whispered, "This isn't over." I believed her. But for the first time, I saw fear behind the anger. And I knew she'd just crossed a line she couldn't uncross. The morning after the meeting felt too quiet, like the pause before something falls over. I stood at my kitchen window watching sprinklers kick on across the street, half expecting Karen to appear with a citation for water misuse. She didn't. That worried me more than if she had. By 10 I got the email. Notice of compliance review. Subject line all caps. Sender address official enough to scare people who didn't read past logos. I opened it slowly. It accused me of interfering with HOA operations, spreading misinformation, and creating a hostile environment. It demanded a written response within 48 hours and warned of potential penalties, including fines and loss of amenities access. Amenities access. The pool again. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. Mark texted me 2 seconds later. You get it too. So did Jake. So did Mrs. Patel's son, who hadn't even been there. Karen was casting wide. By noon a second email hit. Pool access suspended community-wide pending compliance review. She was punishing everyone again. This time the response was different. The pool gate filled by mid-afternoon. Not with swimmers. With people. Lawn chairs. Signs made from cardboard and tape. Someone brought a cooler. Someone else brought a megaphone they clearly regretted later. Karen arrived with 2 printed binders and a forced calm that fooled no one. This gathering is unauthorized, she announced. So was the chain, Jake said. Karen ignored him. You are obstructing common access. Access to what? Mark asked. The locked pool. That got laughter. Karen's jaw tightened. She pointed at me. You are encouraging this. I didn't have to say a word. The crowd did it for me. No, we are, someone said. You don't speak for the community, Karen snapped. The community disagreed loudly. Karen pulled out her phone and started recording. I'm documenting harassment, she said. Document this, a woman said, pointing at the locked gate behind Karen. For the first time, Karen looked uncertain. Not scared. Uncertain. She hadn't planned for this many people to push back at once. She retreated a few steps and made a call. 20 minutes later a city maintenance truck pulled up. Karen's shoulders relaxed. She walked toward it like a general greeting reinforcements. The worker stepped out and looked at the gate. We're here about a lock, he said. Karen nodded sharply. Yes. It needs to stay secured. The worker frowned. We were told it was illegally locked. Karen stiffened. By who? Fire department report, he said. And a follow-up from code enforcement. He reached for his tools. Karen stepped in front of him. You can't. The worker paused. Ma'am, move aside. She didn't. You need HOA authorization, she said. The worker laughed once. No, I don't. He stepped around her and removed the lock. The crowd erupted. Cheers. Clapping. Someone blew a whistle. Karen stood there shaking. This is insubordination, she shouted. The worker looked at her. This is my job. She backed away slowly, eyes darting, calculating. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. The next move came that evening. A police officer knocked on my door just after dinner. Calm. Professional. Uncomfortable. Sir, he said, we received a complaint alleging intimidation and harassment. Karen stood at the sidewalk, arms crossed, watching. I stepped outside. The officer asked questions. I answered. Neighbors gathered. Phones came out. Karen started talking. He organized an illegal protest. He threatened me. I didn't threaten anyone, I said. The officer nodded. I see no evidence of that. Karen's voice rose. Are you calling me a liar? Ma'am, the officer said, I'm saying there's no cause. She snapped. You people never take HOA authority seriously. The officer looked tired. Authority comes with limits. Karen stared at him like she'd never heard that before. The officer left. Karen stayed. She stepped toward me, close enough that only I could hear. You're making enemies, she said. I met her eyes. You already did. Her face twisted. I will ruin you. That was the first real threat. I felt it settle heavy in my chest. Later that night, a new email circulated. From Tom and Elaine. Notice of special board review. Karen's actions under investigation. Pool reopened pending outcome. The neighborhood cheered online. Karen didn't. Her porch light stayed on all night. I slept badly, knowing someone like her doesn't lose quietly. And whatever she tried next wouldn't involve chains or signs. It would be personal. Karen didn't show her face for 2 days after the board notice went out, and the silence felt engineered. Like she was letting everyone relax before pulling something sharp out of a drawer. The pool reopened, kids returned, and for a moment the neighborhood breathed again. I didn't. People who crave control don't retreat. They redirect. The first hit came quietly. I opened my mailbox to find a certified letter. HOA letterhead. Thick envelope. Heavy with intent. Inside was a formal violation notice. Multiple pages. Highlighted sections. Accusations stacked like bricks. Unauthorized gatherings. Disruption of common areas. Defamation of an HOA officer. The final page listed proposed fines that climbed into numbers meant to scare people into folding. I wasn't even surprised. What surprised me was the signature line. Karen's name wasn't there. It was Tom's. And Elaine's. My stomach dropped. I called Mark immediately. Did you get one? Yeah, he said. And Jake. And 3 others. They're using the board now, I said. Mark sighed. Or the board is letting her. That hurt more than the fines. By afternoon the neighborhood group chat was chaos. Screenshot. Anger. Confusion. People asking what to do. Others saying they didn't want trouble. Karen hadn't sent a single message. She didn't need to. The paperwork was doing the intimidation for her. I sat at my kitchen table rereading the letter until the words blurred. Then I noticed something small. The dates didn't line up. One violation cited a time when I was at work. Another referenced a complaint logged after the pool had already been reopened by the board. Sloppy. Rushed. Vindictive. That night I knocked on Tom's door. He looked tired when he opened it. Guilty too. We need to talk, I said. He nodded and stepped aside. Elaine was already there, papers spread across the table. She didn't look up when I sat down. Karen prepared the packets, Elaine said. We didn't realize how aggressive they were until they went out. You still sign them, I said. Tom rubbed his face. She said it was necessary to show authority. Authority over who, I asked. Residents or reality? Elaine finally looked at me. She's threatening legal action if we don't back her. There it was. She says the fire department incident exposed the HOA to liability, Tom added. That your actions triggered it. I laughed. I couldn't help it. She chained a fire gate, I said. That's not exposure. That's negligence. Elaine nodded slowly. I know. But she's loud. And persistent. And you thought I was quieter, I said. They didn't answer. I stood up. If these fines stand, I'll contest them. Publicly. Elaine flinched. That's not necessary. It is, I said. Because this isn't about me. She's testing how far she can go. Tom looked down. We're calling a mediation. With Karen, I asked. Elaine nodded. Tomorrow. I left feeling like I'd stepped into a rigged game. The mediation took place in the clubhouse office. Neutral chairs. Neutral lighting. Nothing neutral about Karen. She sat already smiling when I arrived. Legal pad in front of her. Pen aligned perfectly. Calm in a way that felt practiced. "This is good," she said. "I'm glad you came." I didn't sit. "Let's get it over with." Elaine opened the meeting. "This is a chance to resolve misunderstandings." Karen leaned forward. "There are no misunderstandings. Only consequences." I finally sat. Karen turned to me. "You organized a mob." "I organized neighbors," I said. "You undermined my authority," she replied. "Your authority isn't absolute." She smiled wider. "It should be." Elaine interrupted. "Karen, the board has concerns about how the pool closure was handled." Karen waved a hand. "Old news." "It's not," Tom said. "It triggered all of this." Karen's eyes flashed. "Because he humiliated me." There it was again. Not safety. Not rules. Ego. "You broke fire code," I said. "Anyone would have called it in." Karen tilted her head. "Not everyone wants attention." The room went still. Elaine cleared her throat. "The fines are excessive." Karen shrugged. "Deterrence is expensive." Tom shifted uncomfortably. "We need compromise." Karen leaned back, crossing her arms. "Fine. Drop the fines for everyone else." My chest tightened. "But not for him," she added, nodding at me. I laughed. Out loud. "No." Karen's smile faded. "You don't get to say no. Watch me." Elaine looked between us. "Karen, that's retaliation." Karen's voice sharpened. "It's accountability." I stood. "I will challenge every violation. I will request records, emails, photos, complaints, and when it becomes clear you acted alone and emotionally, this won't stay internal." Karen's eyes widened just a fraction. "You wouldn't dare," she said. I met her stare. "You already taught me how to call the right people." The mediation ended abruptly. 2 days later, a city envelope arrived. Notice of records release. HOA communications requested by a resident. Karen must have received the same notice. Because that night, for the first time since this began, her porch light went dark. I didn't feel victory. I felt the weight of what comes next. When someone who thrives on control realizes they're losing it, they don't de-escalate. They gamble. And Karen was running out of safe moves. The records didn't come all at once. They trickled in, like water finding cracks. First a few emails. Then meeting notes. Then attachments nobody remembered authorizing. Each batch landed in my inbox with the same bland subject line, and each one tightened the knot in my chest. Karen hadn't just acted alone. She'd documented her anger. The first email that made my hands shake was time-stamped the morning of the pool lock. Sent from her personal account to the HOA list. "I am tired of being undermined by residents who think rules are optional. If enforcement causes discomfort, so be it." No mention of safety. No mention of procedure. Another email followed that afternoon. "If emergency services are contacted again without my approval, we will treat it as harassment." I read it twice. Then a third time. She had tried to position herself above emergency response. The next batch included texts forwarded by mistake. Casual. Spiteful. Karen venting to a friend who wasn't even on the board. "They embarrassed me in front of everyone. I will make sure they regret it." No names. No ambiguity. Mark came over that evening. We sat at my table, laptops open, comparing notes. "This is bad," he said. "For her," I replied. "For all of us," he said. This is the kind of thing HOAs implode over. The neighborhood group chat went quiet once people realized what was surfacing. Less outrage. More unease. Nobody liked the idea that someone with that much access had been that unhinged. The board scheduled another meeting. Emergency again. Different tone. Karen arrived late this time. She didn't smile. She didn't carry binders. Just her phone and a legal-looking folder. Tom started the meeting with his hands shaking slightly. "We've received records requests. Some concerns have been raised." Karen cut in. "I've retained counsel." The room went still. Elaine blinked. You did what? Karen crossed her legs calmly. I am protecting myself from defamation. Defamation, I said. You wrote the emails. Karen didn't look at me. Context matters. Tom swallowed. The fire department report contradicts your claims. Karen's jaw tightened. Bureaucrats protect each other. Elaine leaned forward. Karen, you can't threaten emergency services. I didn't threaten, Karen said. I asserted boundaries. The absurdity sucked the air out of the room. We have a duty to the community, Tom said. This is becoming. Karen interrupted. This is becoming inconvenient for you. That was when Elaine stood up. No, she said. This is becoming dangerous. Karen laughed softly. Drama. Elaine slid a printed email across the table. Your words. In writing. Karen glanced at it. Dismissed it. Everyone vents. You don't vent about retaliating against residents, Elaine said. Karen's voice hardened. You don't tell me how to speak. Silence. Tom took a breath. We are placing you on temporary suspension pending review. Karen froze. You can't, she said. We can, Tom replied. Effective immediately. Karen stood slowly. Her chair scraped loud against the floor. You think this ends me, she said. No one answered. She looked at me then. Really looked. The anger was gone. Replaced by calculation. This isn't over, she said. Not even close. She left without another word. That night, something small but telling happened. A tow truck pulled into the neighborhood just after midnight. I watched from my window as it hooked onto Jake's car. Wrong permit sticker, the driver said. HOA request. Jake came running out in socks. Furious. Confused. Karen's porch light flicked on. Then off. By morning, 3 cars had been towed. People panicked. Permits were checked. Old stickers scrutinized. Karen was still acting. Through proxies. Through old authority. I called the city again. They listened. This time longer. By afternoon, a notice went up at the entrance. All HOA enforcement actions suspended pending investigation. Karen's name wasn't on it. But everyone knew. That evening, I walked past her house. Curtains drawn. No light. No movement. For the first time since this started, she had gone quiet for real. That scared me more than the emails. Because when someone like Karen loses official power, they don't stop trying to win. They just stop playing by any rules at all. And I had a feeling she was about to make her biggest mistake yet. Karen's biggest mistake arrived disguised as paperwork. It showed up on a Tuesday morning, slipped into mailboxes before sunrise like a bad secret. Thick envelopes. Certified. Return address not the HOA. A law office downtown with a name that sounded expensive and aggressive. Mine was waiting when I opened the door. Notice of intent to sue. I stood there barefoot on the porch, reading it twice while the neighborhood woke up around me. Allegations of defamation. Emotional distress. Interference with contractual authority. Damages listed in numbers so high they felt fictional. Karen wasn't fighting the HOA anymore. She was coming after me. My phone buzzed almost immediately. Mark. Jake. Mrs. Patel's son. Same envelope. Same threat. She didn't pick one target. She fired in a spread. By 9 the group chat was melting down. Panic. Anger. People asking if they needed lawyers. Others saying they couldn't afford one. Karen had found the pressure point she'd been aiming for all along. Fear. I read the letter again more slowly. Something felt off. Too dramatic. Too rushed. Then I noticed it. The signature wasn't handwritten. It was stamped. I called the number listed. The receptionist sounded tired. The attorney was unavailable. I left a message. An hour later the call came back. Sir, the woman said carefully, we are not representing an HOA. We were retained by a private individual. Karen. And did you review the records request material? I asked. A pause. We were provided summaries. Not the emails, I said. Not the texts. Another pause. Longer this time. Sir, she said, we'll be in touch. By noon a city investigator knocked on my door. Different tone. Different energy. Clipboard but no attitude. We're following up on multiple complaints regarding misuse of HOA authority, she said. And potential retaliation. I invited her in. She listened. Took notes. Asked for emails. Texts. Letters. I handed over everything. She nodded slowly. This helped. Before she left, she asked one more thing. Has she contacted you directly? I thought about the midnight towing. The whispered threats. The letters. Not in writing, I said. She frowned. That's not restraint. That's strategy. That afternoon Karen made her boldest move yet. She went to the pool. Not to swim. To film. She walked the deck with her phone held high, narrating like a documentary nobody asked for. Zooming in on kids. On parents. On license plates in the parking lot. This is evidence, she announced, of continued violations. People started shouting, covering their kids, telling her to stop. She didn't. I arrived just in time to see her filming Mrs. Patel, who was crying now, begging her to stop recording her grandchildren. Karen smiled. Public space. I stepped between them. Enough. She tilted the camera up to my face. Say that again. I didn't raise my voice. Stop recording minors. She laughed. You're not a cop. No, I said. But I know one. She scoffed. Call them. So I did. When the officers arrived, Karen was still filming. Still narrating. Still convinced she was untouchable. They asked her to stop. She refused. They asked again. She cited HOA authority. The officer sighed. Ma'am, this isn't HOA business. She raised her voice. He's harassing me. The officer looked at me. Then at the crowd. Then at her phone. Ma'am, turn off the camera. She didn't. The phone was taken from her hand. That's when she lost it. She screamed. About rights. About power. About how everyone would pay. People recorded. Not her. Her. The city investigator watched from the sidewalk. That evening, the law office emailed. We are withdrawing representation. No explanation. Just that. An hour later, another notice went up at the neighborhood entrance. HOA board member removed pending final action. Karen's name this time. I sat on my porch as dusk settled, listening to kids laugh at the pool again. It should have felt like relief. Instead it felt like standing near the edge of something tall, knowing the fall was coming. Because Karen hadn't accepted defeat. She'd just run out of cover. And when people like her realize there's nothing left to hide behind, they don't retreat quietly. They burn bridges on the way down. The fire truck came back 3 days later, and this time it wasn't for the pool. I was in my kitchen when the sirens cut through the afternoon, close enough that the windows rattled. I stepped outside with half the block, all of us instinctively turning toward Karen's house. Smoke curled out from under her garage door. Not thick. Not dramatic. Just enough to make it very real. Firefighters moved fast. Calm. Professional. One of them forced the garage door while another ran a hose. Neighbors stood frozen on their lawns, phones out but forgotten in their hands. Karen stood barefoot in the driveway, wrapped in a robe, screaming at no one in particular. This is my property. You can't just break in. The captain glanced at her. Fire hazard. Stand back. The garage fire turned out to be minor. An overloaded extension cord powering a space heater, plugged into another extension cord. Exactly the kind of thing Karen had accused everyone else of doing all summer. What mattered wasn't the damage. It was what they found when they cleared the smoke. Stacks of printed emails. HOA notices. Photographs of neighbors taken through windows and fences. License plate logs. Handwritten notes with names circled. Date. Times. A firefighter carried out a plastic bin and set it on the driveway. Karen lunged toward it. Don't touch that. The captain stopped her. Ma'am, this is evidence now. That word changed everything. The city investigator arrived before the fire trucks even left. She didn't look surprised. She looked tired. Like someone who had been waiting for a final piece to click into place. Karen tried to explain. Everyone misunderstood her. She was protecting the community. People had turned against her. The investigator listened quietly, then gestured toward the bin. You were documenting residents without cause. Karen shook her head wildly. They were violating rules. The investigator's voice was calm. You don't have the authority to surveil people. Karen laughed, sharp and broken. I had authority. You did, the investigator said. Past tense. A police officer stepped forward. Ma'am, we're placing you under investigation for harassment and misuse of authority. Karen stared at him. You can't do this. He didn't argue. As they escorted her to the cruiser, she finally saw me standing with the others. Her face twisted. This is your fault. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The next week moved fast. The HOA board dissolved and reformed under city oversight. Emergency bylaws were rewritten. Pool rules were posted by the city, not the HOA. Simple, clear, unchangeable. Karen's lawsuit evaporated quietly. No announcement. No apology. Just gone. Her house went up for sale a month later. The sign stayed longer than anyone expected. When it finally disappeared, the new owners arrived with kids, pool toys, and a nervous wave. The neighborhood welcomed them carefully, like people relearning how to trust. One afternoon I sat by the pool with Mark, watching the kids splash. Hard to believe it started with a lock, he said. I nodded. It wasn't about the pool. He smirked. Never is. The city installed a new gate. Bright red emergency bar. No chains. No locks. A sign above it in plain language. Emergency access must remain clear at all times. I liked that it didn't mention authority. Only safety. Sometimes power doesn't get taken away by shouting or revenge. Sometimes it drains quietly, like water leaving a pool through an open valve. Karen thought she controlled everything because she held the keys. She never noticed the people watching the drain. And when it finally opened, there was nothing left for her to stand on.